If I can get the panel members that are part of this panel. So as folks are coming up and taking their seat, just want to provide a little bit of context. So we've been talking already this morning about individuals, about families, and the effects of incarceration on individuals and families, right? But I also want to sort of talk about what does this mean in terms of economic development. If you look at a report that was recently sent out by the Manufacturing Institute, they're saying because of lack of labor shortages, there's about $1 trillion worth of economic development that is not being fulfilled, right? You think about what's happening in relation to bringing offshore jobs back to the U.S. Congress just passed, I think, the CHIP Act, which is associated with the manufacturing of chips here and electronic chips here in the U.S., right? You know, here in Texas, from May of 2021 to May of 2022, we added about 750,000 jobs. Huge amount of jobs, huge amount of economic development, huge amount of sort of investment that is happening. And so when you think about second chance and we think about labor, we really are talking about sort of what are we gaining or what are we missing based on what's happening with the labor shortages, right? Based on what's happening with economic development. Just here in Alamo, we created about 50,000 new jobs in that same time period. Today we're at 4% unemployment, and as the commissioner said, there are many, many employers out there that are looking for how do we fill the jobs that are being, produced. This is also about prison diversion and lower taxes and less hospitalizations and better outcomes for individuals and families, right? When we help out individuals and families that have had some involvement with justice, right, and they get employed, there's basically three things that prevent them from recidivism: employment, housing, and their environment. If they go back to their environment that they got themselves in trouble with, they're probably likely to recidivate. But those three things, right? So employment is probably the top thing, though, as it relates to those three things. So today in this first session, we're going to talk about how successful employers have actually hired second chance populations. And so I'll take the next couple of minutes to allow them to introduce themselves. Let's start right here.
Is this on?
Yeah, like God.
I'm Kevin Moore with Union Pacific Railroad, in charge of strategic partnerships for the company across the system.
Good morning. My name is Jim Tipton. I'm a private employer in Brownsville, Texas. I have 3 auto dealerships.
Good morning, Megan Morrow. I'm with the Texas Association of Business, and we are the state chamber for the state of Texas.
And good morning. My name is Leslie Cantu. I'm the Assistant Vice President of Administration at Toyota Tetsu, Texas. We're one of the Tier 1 suppliers for Toyota here in San Antonio.
So there'll be a few questions that we're going to ask the panel, but first I'd just like to acknowledge the fact that these employers take the risk, right? There's a huge amount of risk associated with, one, hiring people, making an investment into those folks, right? And so, but that risk has actually also produced results for them. And so some of that we're going to talk about a little bit today or hear from the panel. So first question, and this could be anybody on the panel, can you share how many years your organization has employed folks from Second Chance?
Sure, I'll go ahead and start off with this one. So our first introduction to working with the justice-involved population started in 2017. We kind of stumbled into it on accident by participating in a Bexar County funded training program through Texas Fame. And so we had such a positive experience with that, and we were struggling to hire at the time. It got us thinking, maybe this is a population we should intentionally be targeting. So in 2018 is when we started a program, a structured program to specifically focus on hiring justice involved, and we have been focusing on this population since then. So since 2018, we've hired now close to about 100 individuals through this program.
next door to an individual that was, at the time, a drug and alcohol counselor. They got to be friends, got to find out his story. Alec spent 17 years in prison at State Penn, I guess, or they call it State College, I guess, individuals do. But he spent 17 years there. They became good friends. We hired him as a salesman, and he hasn't made less than $150,000 a year since he started 5 years ago. He introduced us to the program, and we've hired over 150 individuals through that program, and currently have 17 on staff.
So we're fairly new to the business. We've only been in it 6 months. We've hired about 38 individuals. We're actually going system-wide. So we stood up programs in LA, Chicago. We're trying to spread around Texas here too. Denver, we've got San Francisco. But Texas is where we're starting up. We started in Houston. We've been recognized nationally for that program that we stood up in Houston, and so we've had great success. So we're looking forward. We're moving in here to Bexar County next, trying to see what we can do here. We haven't hired in San Antonio for about 5 years. We're hiring now, which these are great jobs. Again, $100,000 a year plus. It's careers, not just jobs. And we've learned, and we'll probably talk about that later, what that makes. That's a big difference.
And so TAB, the Texas Association of Business, we've been in this space for a few years now, and really because of our movers, so Union Pacific, Onshore Resources, JP Morgan Chase, who have created policies within their own employment practices to be second chance employers. And so as we look towards building our workforce and the productivity of our workforce, this is just an untapped talent pool that businesses and employers are looking towards to build their workforce. So we're excited, and we look to our members for leadership who are doing amazing things that I'm sure we'll hear more about on this panel. So thank you.
Thank you. So really amazing work. I think what a lot of folks are probably in the audience are going to be very curious about is what are some of the practices or best practices that you're implementing? What are some of the things that you're doing to mitigate, for example, some of the risk associated, because there is risk obviously associated with, what are some of the practices that you are implementing? So anybody on the panel want to talk a little bit more about how do you address this? Because I'm sure folks in the audience are going to ask, great, how did you do that?
So trying to explain to the C-suite why this is a good idea was kind of hard, right? So you have people like, that helped us out, NAM, Manufacturing Institute, Level Set. You have to educate yourself. There's so much, and then they come into places like this, conferences like this, helps employers, encourage them. The very first person we hired lasted a week. He failed his drug test. And I had to go to the 19th floor and explain, that's your first hire? This is a really good program. But the support of the community and the support of agencies like yourself, we used it as a learning tool. And it was really our fault. We needed to communicate early that, hey, you're going to get drug tested, right? When you come in that first 8 weeks, you're going to get drug tested every week. And it's not us, it's a federal regulation that we've got to abide by. So, we took it and turned it into a good practice, right? So now we developed a one-pager that we give to the agencies that we work with to recruit and build our pipelines to let them know, hey, these are some of the things that are going to happen when you first get through there. We've developed so many different tools working with people like, NAM and working with Level Set that they've helped us educate. And then just the growing network, working with Megan, reaching out to other employers that have done the same thing and have had success. You'd be surprised how, willing they are to give you information, to share forms. So, we don't have to reduplicate the work. So start developing your network within this network and come to these conferences.
I would say that it starts with how much you're willing to pay to start with, because me personally, I don't believe that anybody can live on $400 a week. So it's going to start with paying them a living wage, paying them something that they can buy a health care package from us. They can feed their family. A lot of the people that we have, the women, we have about half of the people that are with us currently are women who are single moms. And so they are trying to support themselves and their family. And so we start out at $12 an hour and we go up from there. So that starts with it. And then the fact that because we've had so much success with this program, it's a culture thing. People within the program are 12-steppers. They form their own Bible studies. They share their stories with others, and they communicate that. And I'm a big believer in it. So I walk around and talk to the individuals and ask them if they need anything and how are they doing and how are they progressing. So it's really a top of mind awareness type of a situation in my facility. And I love them. I would say to anybody that's thinking about it, give it a chance. The people that I have working for me in that program do not want to go back. They want to be one of the 80%ers that stay out, and they are very loyal employees. They're hardworking employees, and I love them. So thank you.
For us, we found that the best practice has really been to take a holistic approach to working with the justice-involved population. So my company, we're not experts in working with those individuals. We're an expert in building truck parts. So in order to be able to best serve and create an environment that's going to make the job seekers successful, to make us successful, is to really partner and work with those entities that are experts in those fields. And so that's what we did when we started in 2018, was to make sure we brought the right people to the table. We have the jobs, we have the opportunities, but how do we connect? So we started with the individuals that we knew that worked in that arena. So we partnered with Workforce Solutions Alamo, Chrysalis Ministries, Bear County Community Economic Development, the Reentry Center with Bear County, and then partnered with experts nationally, like the Manufacturing Institute, that had additional resources that we could tap in about best practices nationally that maybe we could start to model and follow. And so once we bring those experts to the table, then we can start to address the barriers that come with this population. If you don't address the barriers, then none of us are going to be successful. So for us, we're an employer that's not on a bus route. And I think most of us probably know transportation is a huge issue for individuals that are recently incarcerated or even formally incarcerated but don't have transportation yet. Maybe they don't have their driver's license or they can't afford a vehicle. And so we brought partners to the table like the van pool, the Compete with Enterprise program, to establish van pools. And so from an employer standpoint, our focus was to be flexible, to make sure we could get those individuals into the van pool, find subsidies that would support them as they were earning their paychecks, and then transition them through financial literacy classes, learning how to be able to eventually pay for that on their own. So little by little, working with these experts, we're able to address those issues. We also learned that food insecurities is probably a little known issue that most people don't think about. And so partnering with the food bank to make sure they have access to those, because you have parents that are at work and our jobs are physically demanding, and then they don't have the nutrition they need to be healthy on the floor. They're also stressed out at work because their kids don't have food at home. So again, I could go on and on about the amazing partnerships we have, but for us, the best practice really has been bringing the right experts to the table and making sure that we're all coming together to be supportive and understanding. From an employer standpoint too, for us, the best practice is being compassionate. So I know the panel had mentioned maybe failing a drug test or those types of things. We do have individuals that have struggled with alcohol and substance abuse. We do have drug testing at our office too. We want to make sure that we create an environment that the individual feels comfortable to be honest. I'd much rather have somebody come to me, and we've had this happen before, and say, I
Yes, and I'll just comment. Our job also, as I mentioned, is to convene and to understand these best practices and relay that message to our other members, that are employers that are looking for economic solutions to fulfill their workforce needs, and then also understand all the great things that the state is already doing. Texas Workforce Commission, TDCJ, Wyndham Schools, and making sure that we are educating employers on what is out there and how it can help them economically with the business add-on. But these stories are amazing and love hearing them.
Good. This is really, really great stuff. So let me see if I can capture a little bit of the summary of what was discussed. So clear expectations, laying out clear expectations from the inception seems to be a really good practice, right? Being humanistic or compassionate, right? Sounds like, a pretty simple thing, right? But sometimes we don't do it, and I'm probably guilty of that in my own workplace, right, as a CEO. Work with experts or people who know the population a little bit better than you do, right? Seems to be a best practice. Focus on underlying conditions. So if it's transportation, if it's food, if it's, drug abuse or a potential for drug abuse, focus on those things, it seems to be. So those underlying conditions that will get people into trouble again and potentially recidivate, right? I want to shift a little bit and talk, because it was brought up about sort of working with partners. And this next question will be about, where do you work with, or do you work with, for example, adult diversion courts or other court systems for hiring employees, right? One of the more successful programs that I think that is kind of a secret with the Texas Workforce Commission and the workforce boards is what's called a non-custodial parent program. And those are folks that are in front of a judge. They're about to either go to prison because they're in arrears for child support. And so the judge basically says, do you want to go to prison, or do you want to pay your child support and go talk to Workforce Solutions, right? So we have staff inside the court system that are actively working with those folks. Since the inception of that program, which was I think about 2011, about 5,000 individuals, about $50 million worth of child support payments has actually been collected. So we diverted folks from going to prison, got them back to work, and then also worked with their families, right? Some level of reconciliation, right? So to the panel again, are you working closely with adult diversion courts and other court systems?
So one thing that I do want to highlight that I don't think I mentioned is not only is that the program that I'm discussing today something that my company is a part of, but we were able to actually expand the program back at the end of last year, and we're up to 7 manufacturers now that are part of this particular initiative. So our mission is to be able to bring manufacturing careers, opportunities available to the justice involved population. And so for us, it's extremely important to get the word out to as many justice-involved partners as we can, so we get as many referrals as possible. So we do partner with Barry County Reentry, the Adult Probation Departments, Pretrial Diversion, Texas Department of Criminal Justice. I know Adrian and I had gone and presented to the specialty court judges, and the specialty court judges were very interested, and I've actually had the courts reach out to us for more information, so that can be potentially, as Adrian was saying, a way to prevent somebody from having further consequences. They can participate in the program, get employment, and stay out of trouble. And then, of course, in addition to the structured court programs, we do work with others that are experts and work with the population, so we get referrals from Goodwill, Workforce Solutions Alamo, Chrysalis Ministries, and we're trying to get the word out to more agencies just to make sure that everybody that is interested in manufacturing has an opportunity if they're interested.
So we're just starting. In fact, we're sitting at the table with a couple of you of our folks that we're trying to talk to. We're trying to get into that space. The thing is that, when something is successful in corporate America, then they want more, right? So they want the big next thing. And we feel that the big next thing is going to be this void after COVID. You have a large population of people that dropped out of school. You have a large population of people who didn't go back to work. And And so we think that that's an untapped resource right there. We're trying to get ahead of it. And so we're going to join forces, take some of the lead from some of the things that they're doing here in Bexar County, get involved with some of these courts, and try to see if we can, divert people from going to prison, get them good paying jobs, and bring them on. So we're just starting. We're trying to get all the ducks in line. There's just so many regulations and so many legal hoops that you got to jump through, especially when you're regulated by the federal government. So, but we're going to get there. We'll get there. We need your help.
Good. Jim or Megan? Well, sounds like you all need to get with Leslie there and learn some lessons from Leslie. You will work for Leslie. So let me ask about any kind of additional resources that, as an employer, did you have to add any additional resources? Certainly, you can talk about sort of philosophy about C-suite and potentially with maybe your HR department. Talk to us a little bit about what kind of resources as an employer did you have to add in order to meet the needs of this population?
So for us, we actually started looking at this 3 years ago. It took us 3 years in-house to just change the processes that we had, from our background to our hiring process, because there was a lot of changes. We had to send our applications, our job descriptions through a lot of services to make sure that they were not knocking out people. And what we found out, and we changed a lot of things just in our regular hiring process, that we found that we were really excluding a lot of people out there from, I can tell you 9 out of the 10 times I go talk to somebody, they just, we ask them, well, why didn't you ever come to us? They're like, well, we didn't think you'd ever hire any of our people. And so we quickly realized that we had a reputation of being kind of hard to get into. And it is, but if you apply, you have a chance to get hired. So we've had to change a lot of our internal policies. We had to work with, Manufacturing Institute. They helped us out a lot. I mean, I keep telling, I keep pointing out here, because she sits out there. She's my conscience. She's like, yeah, that's a really dumb.
Pooja, why don't you stand up and let everybody recognize you? And Pooja's with the Manufacturing Institute, so anybody wants to talk to her about, the best practices as well. She's from Bexar County, so.
Yeah. So it's been great. I mean, it takes a long time. You can't just flip overnight, especially, we're a 160-year-old company, right? And so the way we do things and the way we have to get things through the process, through the federal government, there's certain things that we got to have. One of the things that I learned real quick, it helped a lot, was with Penny. A lot of these people were coming out without driver's license, without social security cards. And then all of a sudden, I talked to Penny. I said, man, Penny, I'm having a hard time because we can't do I-9s on these folks. And she's like, well, wait a minute. They're supposed to have all that stuff. And so now we started asking the question, well, you're supposed to have all that stuff. And they do. They just don't know what to ask for. So as far as added services, they've created a position now, which I don't know what that means, strategic partnerships, but it's all been second chance hiring so far. And going across the country and trying to set up different, programs across the country, especially in areas that we need, help with the workforce. But there's a lot of changes internally, from the understanding, again, with NAM helping us develop a document with vocabulary for the C-suite to use. And I would say probably once a week, one of them are on national TV being interviewed using that one-page document on words and how to explain the program and what we're doing and why we're doing it. I mean, that's what we have to do as a company. First, identify why we wanted to get involved. We sit on 4 pillars. Number 1, obviously we need the workforce. Number 2, we were missing an untapped talent, 70 million people a year that we weren't even touching, right? Not even given an opportunity. And then the biggest thing, I guess, and I'll skip the third one, but the fourth one is we see the impact. They helped us measure the impact that we make in our communities. And that's huge for us. So.
Jim, you want to talk a little bit?
I think the only thing we've had to was, you mentioned the I-9s and the driver's licenses. We have to have those in our business as well. And when we hire these people, we're giving them more time to come up with those documents. And we understand that they may need 6 months sometimes to get those documents, find out if they need a ride to work. Majority of them that we get that don't stay are dropped off in the morning by the services and they're picked up in the afternoon. So we know they're coming to work. They're reliable and they're going to be there. And we follow their progress, watch and see them, see if they're in the program to get a driver's license, see if they're what they have to get as far as all their documentation. And really the only thing that we've done is give them more time than a normal individual, or not a normal, but the average individual that comes in and apply for us. And that's it.
Megan, any best practices or?
Yeah, well, I would just to comment on the driver's license issue, just, thank the Texas legislature a few sessions back helped pass legislation to remove some of those barriers, and it was a TV priority, so thanks to our chair, Penny Rayfield, for leading that initiative as well.
For us, we really haven't had to add additional resources. Part of that's due to the strategic design of bringing the partners on. Most of the partners do come with some type of resources that we're able to tap into. So, for example, one of our requirements to work at our facility is to have steel-toed shoes. Steel-toed shoes are expensive. They may run $100 to $200, and so that could be something that would prevent somebody from starting work because they don't have the funds for that. So partners like Workforce Solutions Alamo or Chrysalis Ministries or Goodwill can help cover the cost of that to support that individual. So we haven't really had to add that type of resource. Similar to Ken, we've had to change some processes. So when we started our initiative back in 2018, we had to take a long, hard look at our hiring practices. So there may have been a more hard approach to these types of background challenges. We don't hire. These we'll consider. And so one thing that we had learned through working with our attorney and then working with partners like the Manufacturing Institute in Dare County is really to focus on individuals and those individual circumstances and not have a hard approach of we don't hire this criminal background. It's important for us to understand the entire situation. So out of that, we actually created a document that we call a letter of consideration. That letter of consideration allows the individual to provide additional information about their circumstances so they can share with us information about circumstances surrounding their convictions, things that they have done to change their life, programs they've gone through, support systems they have, and then letting us know, why they went to work for us and how a job through us would help change their life. And so we look at all of that information, we look at the past work history, and then make a decision based on that individual. And so that's one of the biggest changes to our hiring program, to make sure that we are giving a fair shot to the individuals that are coming to us with background issues. So those types of processes have changed. Also, this may go more kind of that best practice question, but one thing that we have learned along the way is it's really important for us to have what we call a success coach, and there's a success coach tied to meeting with these individuals on a predetermined frequency to talk to individuals about challenges or concerns they have with starting a new job. So this success coach meets with these individuals for their first 90 days. And so, most of us know we've started a new job. There's kind of new job jitters, right? You're learning a new industry, you're working with new people, and there's new policies, and there's new expectations, and that can be scary. And so sometimes this population says, this is new, this is scary, I'm out. But if they have that kind of neutral support system that they can go to, that they trust, that's working with them in addition to their employer, in addition to maybe a case manager at one of the other agencies, that they can go to and talk about these concerns that are going on, and they can come back to us if it's something work-related. They'll come back to us so we can work together to get an answer or to resolve the problem. And then that success coach can also get them connected to other resources. So maybe they started working with us, they had transportation, but they lost transportation. We need to address that. Maybe they lost their child care. Maybe they lost their housing. Things that have popped up that maybe most of us could kind of persevere and move through and figure out how to solve the problem, but maybe these individuals are kind of missing that critical solving skills because they don't know how to do it. They haven't had an opportunity. So
Great. So you all started talking a little bit about some of the common barriers, right, whether it's transportation or childcare or others. What are some of those other things that you guys see as potentially barriers that will prevent folks from coming?
So for us, it's travel, right? Traveling outside the county, traveling outside the state. So we're trying to get in front of it. We've taken some of the documents that's been shared with us. We've developed also another second piece of our hiring process. If someone gets flagged in the background, then we pull them out and we use that time, nature time we used. So it's your form, and we developed our own form. And so what we do is we put a case together and we look at time, nature time. But when we look at the individual, but what we've been running into is a lot of our jobs, like if they work here in San Antonio, they're going to have to travel to Laredo or to Eagle Pass and to leave the county. So we've developed some letters that we like to give to the agencies that are working with the individuals, to give to the probation office, give to the parole office, working with Jarvis. He's taken out a lot of those barriers for us with a direct line of communication, right? Being able to contact someone saying, hey, we're going to hire this person. We need to know who they report to because we need to let them know that they might be leaving in the middle of the night to go to Laredo or somewhere. But they can always call this person or call me, and I can tell them exactly where they're at and what they're doing. But that's been a headache, not only here, but across the United States. I think the other thing is, again, is just finding out, and I saw it earlier in Ms. Campbell's slide, the wraparound services. Those are huge, because as an employer, there's only certain things that we can do, right? And so it's important that you connect them with things that, like housing, transportation. We took the idea of this enterprise, took it to Minnesota, and now they're using it, the van pool. It's a great tool. You just see the vehicles, but you never thought what they, never knew what they did. So they help bring some of our people, and it's 24/7. They get to keep the vehicle. Great programs. But transportation was huge. Housing was huge. If you come work for us, it's going to be a month before you get a full paycheck. And so a lot of these individuals are working, week to week to make ends meet. And like someone said, $400 a week. We just had a big story run about one of the females that we hired. She was making $300 a week trying to support her and 2 kids. They were living out of her car, right? So we had to find some way to find housing for her, but we don't do that. Unions, we take freight from point A to point B. So finding services, finding agencies that could help us with that, and having those conversations. I mean, relationships are huge, and the network you build is huge. And so you're finding it just spills over. You find out, you take an idea from here, you take it to, they're like, oh, I didn't know they were doing that, and then you do it over there. But the biggest barrier for us is transportation, and then sometimes finding those needs, those basic needs. We don't ever think about work boots, right? To start a job, so now we're paid for half of them, and then they pay the other half because they are expensive. They're $100, $200. So we'll pay $100. We give them a voucher to go get the boots. They can just go to any Red Wing store, pick up a pair of boots, and then we'll take $25 out of their next 2 paychecks to make them the rest. So it's the basic need, I guess.
A lot of the people we've hired don't, they come to us and they don't even have the soft skills. They don't know how to introduce themselves. They don't know how to say good morning. They don't know how to, they're customer facing. And so we have to go through 90 days teaching them how to address their customers and address the customer needs, how to get along with the other employees, how to type, how to use the computer. We put people in positions to succeed and put a mentor with them, put someone in the department with them, do cross-training across the departments, and in that department we'll do cross-training so they can see the different jobs that are in each department. I'm fortunate with Ford Motor Company and Hyundai and CDJR, they all have modules for training in the service department and the body shop and the quick lane. So each customer, each employee sits down and goes through the modules with an instructor and can learn how to use a computer that way, learn how to read that way. English is a second language is a barrier that we have in my fluent, we have people that are fluent in both languages in managerial positions, help them get through the process. Our HR lady is very experienced with that. We also use in the hiring process, it was mentioned earlier, it's very critical. We don't hire people with violent backgrounds. We don't hire anybody with who has been arrested for violent crime or for vandalism or for theft. We will hire mainly people that have had soft crimes, been with somebody that they shouldn't have been, had a small amount of weed or small amount of drugs of some sort, maybe possibly dealing, that kind of thing. We understand that. And we have a good support system around the store to find out what these people need and try and react to it. I don't have the formal process. I want to go to work for you.
So as far as barriers, we talked about some of the most common ones, but as was mentioned just a second ago, the soft skills piece. So that's kind of something that maybe would prevent somebody from finding employment and maintaining employment. And so one thing that we did in the program was we created what we call manufacturing boot camp, and it's about a 2-day class that helps with those soft skills. It talks about teamwork and good communication, learning how to interact with others, and conflict resolution, those types of things, as well as really introduces them to the manufacturing industry, expectations, common terms, the importance of safety, so that the individual really, before they ever start working with us, they know what they're getting into, they're comfortable with the environment, and it won't be quite as scary on the first day of work. One other barrier that probably isn't talked about a whole lot, but it really is a barrier to them maintaining employment, is understanding the commitments, the appointments, the classes they have to take, whether it's court-mandated classes, probation appointments, parole appointments. Those types of things can all impact or interfere with work sometimes. And so I'm sure most of us all have attendance policies, and with our attendance policy, it's a no-fault attendance policy, and it doesn't really matter why you're missing. And so one thing that we've heard time and time again is, well, I'm in danger of getting terminated because I have attendance issues, but I'm having attendance issues because I have to go to these. And so those are questions that we ask up front, not to exclude people and rule them out, but so that we can start to build those relationships with the right partners ahead of time, so we can see how we can work around their appointments and our schedule. So we've talked to parole officers and probation officers. We've reached out to higher level individuals in those departments and those agencies to say, we're having issues. How do we make sure this individual is meeting their court mandated requirements, they're going to their follow-up appointments, but they're not missing work? And so again, it goes to those partnerships, those relationships, to make sure that that employee knows that they're there to help them, we're there to work together. I think a lot of times they feel defeated and they're embarrassed that they have to keep going to these things, and they don't want to say anything until it's too late. You're sitting down and you're terminating somebody. We tell them from the beginning, we want to understand your schedule, we want to understand the challenges that you're having, so that we can work together, so we don't have an issue.
Great, good. So we talked a little bit about, the economic impact and, the effect on prison diversion or jail diversion. But I want to hear from you all in regards to what do you think are the advantages of hiring second chance individuals?
I'll jump into this one first.
Okay.
Since we have been participating in this initiative since 2018, we do have a lot of data. And so we are a data-driven company. We're driven by metrics. We like to analyze everything. And so the lessons that we've learned along the way, the information we've been able to analyze, is we've learned that individuals that are coming to us through the justice-involved route have better retention than individuals that are coming to us through just normal recruiting means. The individuals that are coming to us through second chance people from going back and reoffending. It helps people provide for their families. But at the end of the day, I'm a business and I have to run a business. And it just makes good sense for me to hire individuals that want to be there, that are going to be there, and work hard.
So, again, I totally agree. That's what makes this job easy, right? To sell it. You have the stories, you have, like 3 weeks ago, one of the first people or female that we hired called crying, and I was like, oh man, here we go. What happened? And she said, I just want to thank you. She goes, I finally got to take my kids to a dentist. When you call to make the job offer, they ask you if they can put you on speakerphone. They want everybody to hear. Those are the things that make the difference. So it's important. And then we see, we're data driven, so we got to show how we're impacting, right? Yes, we're filling the pipeline. Yes, we're getting talented. But if you just look, an article just came out yesterday in Forbes, or 2 days ago, in Forbes magazine, and it was really a study done about pre and post-COVID frontline workers, what appealed and what made them, successful, what retained them at the work, and what were the values that they valued. But in the article, what came up was second chance hiring. They said that they found that the most successful people now, post-COVID, are those that have had some kind of justice involvement. They promote quicker, they apply for promotions more often than their regular counterparts, and the retention is higher. And those numbers don't lie. Those are numbers that we didn't ask for. They did the study. So it is out there. The proof's in the pudding. It's easy to sell. These people are motivated and they're willing to do what it needs. They just don't want to go back. They want to be successful. They just need a chance.
I mentioned earlier that we hired over 150 individuals in the last 5 years, and that we only have 17 that we retained. They left because they didn't live in the area. They came in and worked for us, got some skills, stayed long enough to be promoted, learn some things, and then moved back to their communities. And I live in the Rio Grande Valley, and so in Brownsville is where the halfway house is. It's across the street from my store, so we've got the reputation in our community of in that halfway house of being a place to go look for a job. So we're very fortunate in that regard. The retention is better. I have a warranty clerk who has 9 months pregnant. She's going to have a baby sometime next week, and I asked her when it was due, and she said it's due the 30th, but I'm coming back on Monday. And I said, no, you're not. You're not coming back on Monday. 2 children and 2 grandchildren, but I know you're not coming back Monday. Take your time. We'll help you if you need to. Take your time and come back. Your job's here. The other thing I'll say about why I like these people and why I keep them is one of my service writers in the Hyundai store is a female, and she told me, and she wrote a letter to me, and she told me at the bottom that going to prison was a defining moment for her, but she's not going to let that moment define who she is.
Wow. Great.
I have 4 or 5 individuals that will write me continuously notes. Thank you for hiring me. Thank you. This has been a life-changing experience for me. They're so appreciative of the job. The film showed earlier that it's a scary proposition to come out, and now what? Now where do I go? Well, it's a great soft landing if you can find an employer willing to hire you. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, and I'll just comment, economically, it's a no-brainer for
So we got about 8 minutes or so left. Any last sort of advice that you would provide to other employers about what we've been discussing the last hour?
Well, I would, if you're just thinking about it, jump in, right? We need you, right? We got to show a unified front. Have your doors open. The reason I had to start in Houston was because I was running around trying to find someone to contact here. My office is here in San Antonio. Didn't know. Keep your doors open to companies like us. You know, we just don't know what we don't know. Take the time to educate us with what services you do provide, right? And help us understand how that will benefit our company. Take that time, because we just don't know sometimes. I would say the biggest thing is, you know, help us understand why it's important to be involved. You know, that was the big piece, is sitting us down and telling us why we need to be in this space, right? You know, we said it earlier, our job is to move freight, right? A lot of these things become, you know, we become blinded by them, and sometimes you got to keep us accountable as a huge company. You know, we're a Fortune 250 company. Keep us accountable to your communities. We got the dollars. We can help make the changes, but you got to keep us accountable.
I would say I'm old school, so I would say get used to the tattoos. Right? I asked a psychologist one time, why do people tattoo themselves, sleeves and everything? And she told me that it's two things. One is they're identifying with another group of individuals that are tattooed, and the second is they're keeping non-tattooed people away. And so we have to have good decorum, so the salesmen that are tattooed all the way up and down both arms wear long sleeve shirts, whether it's 108 degrees outside or not. A couple of the girls have to wear high collars because they've got the tattoos around here. A lot of them are going to have tattoos. You just have to get used to it and own it and get along with it. Okay.
I think I would have to say, share your stories and ask others for help and tell us what you need as an association. We want to hear from our members. So if there's an issue, whether it's on the legislative side or just a business issue that they need advice or connections, to reach out and let us know. And it's our goal at TAB through our foundation to convene a second chance employers coalition. We have enough to help whenever someone in San Antonio needs a connection to Houston. Well, we have an employer in Houston who's already doing that, and we can all work together.
So in this current job market that we're in, I know probably every one of us in this room, whether it's our companies or our businesses that are trying to hire are struggling. With 1 in 4 Americans having a criminal background, it doesn't make any sense to alienate that much of the population that could be applying for you. Looking at a report that was put out by the Manufacturing Institute for my particular industry, for manufacturing, we're going to have 2.1 million jobs that are left unfilled by 2030. Seeing what that forecast is and knowing what we're currently experiencing, just from a strategic business standpoint, it doesn't make any sense to alienate any populations. So my advice, my recommendation would be keep an open mind, tap into resources that maybe you haven't tapped into before, whether that's justice involved, individuals with disabilities, foster youth. These are all things that the commissioner had mentioned in his opening speech. But there are so many populations that are not traditionally a focus. I would encourage you to focus on those populations. With the market today, there is no one magic answer. You're not going to get all of your candidates from one area, one population, one source. You have to start to tap into all of these sources to be successful. So I would encourage
So thanks to the panel, and not only for what you provided today and what you shared, but also about what you do on a daily basis. I'm old school too, and from the perspective that grew up in a small town and you learn certain values, right? And one of the values is about sort of understanding and recognizing good people. Right, and so thanks to these good people for all the great work that they did. I think we're probably going to wrap up, but please help me in congratulating them with a big round of applause. Thank you. Thank you.